Please start.
Okay. Good morning, all. Our group has come up with a unique ribbon design for the station gateway at Swinburne University. Our group consists of myself, Nick, Nadar, Harry, and Max. Our concept is named Uwita. This is the Latin translation for the word ribbon. For our design, main structure and focus is ribbon, as you can see and will see throughout the presentation. Here is a brief run through of what we'll be covering in our presentation today.
Yeah, so for this project, we chose site number 2, which is the Swinburne Gateway located in Hawthorne. So the site is poorly developed with only an existing staff car park and a walkway that leads you to Swinburne University. The site is an important access space that connects Glenferrie Road to Swinburne University, so becoming a central hub to both areas. When analyzing the site, we realized that the train station arches are fenced up, so these ones here, wasting valuable space that could potentially become a functional space. Also, we considered to minimize large renovations, so like keeping the facade of the security building.
These are some pictures showing how the current site is uninviting, and on the top right and middle pics, we can see how there is a hidden alleyway, which we would like to turn in an area for more foot traffic.
As you can see, the site is a very important connection to Swinburne and the Dawn Arcade shops, with multiple access that connect to 4 places such as Swinburne University, Glenferrie train station, Glenferrie Road, and Swinburne University Park. So we want to use this idea of access and translate it to a new creative space. So these axes become a free-form lines that lead people to different areas due to the nature of the lines being fluid, and also allowing it to form activities and moments in the site. The next question is, how do we translate this idea into a tectonic structure? So the way we approached it is by transforming the lines into what we call the ribbon form. The ribbon form can be manipulated to a straight, free form, or even split lines to develop moments and activities with the form. So what I mean by activities is the ribbons being shaped and customized to create activities such as leaning, standing tables, daytime naps, steps, canopies, studying tables that could be used for interior spaces, entry/pathway, resting and seating moments all over the site. These will be all over the site to make it easy and interact with the space, forming through one tectonic system. So this is a diagram to show you how the final site is being developed from the existing site. So the first thing we did is transform the ground into a nice like shape to keep a consistent form to the ribbons and help translate the idea of leading and guiding people through curves. Then adding variety of vegetation areas and keeping the existing trees. We also created circular skylights through the security buildings, as you can see in this one, to expose light into the dark areas of the building for more natural light. And finally, adding the ribbons that form different activities through the site.
So this is an image of our existing floor plans for the security building. So we can see that it's quite a clustered area. And I think that if you've been there, you'll agree that there's lots of walls, making it not very inviting and quite closed off. So this is the new floor plan, our proposed security building. And this redesign makes it quite fluid and takes away the cluster problem, making it very inviting. So we actually interviewed some people who use this space regularly, and they said if they could change anything, they would add a lift for easy access for people who are movement impaired.
So as I was saying before about the circle openings to let the light through both floors. So the ground floor will become a space for meeting and socializing, plus a presentation area in here. For presentations and use the projectors for any events that Swinburne may create. So the first floor, the second level, becomes a more of a study/quiet area for students to pursue quiet activities. Referencing the previous floor plans, this is a ground floor render of how the space is used at the presentation area and the seating areas surrounding it. Here is a render of the top level depicting multiple ribbons that form tables for people to use with a combination of chairs. We chose carpet to help soundproof and reduce echoes as it is a large space. Also showing the different circle openings. Here's another render of the first floor.
Yeah, so in those renders, you can see there's ribbons passing through glass. And so in order to not cut a hole in a piece of glass, which is quite difficult, we decided to butt the two pieces of ribbon up to the glass, which would solve this really difficult issue.
So this is the site plan showing our proposed design in relation to the rest of the site, also allowing us to understand the material palette and textures used to make the space. As you can see in this floor plan, the back area, so this area of the security building, is way better and more interactive than the original space due to the ribbon creating benches and tables that flow to the shop entrance and outside. We open up the back space to create access to Glen Ferry Shop Center that makes the space much more functional. And this render shows you the backspace of the building and how it leads you to the shops. There's a north elevation view, which helps depict how the ribbons move in and out of the security building to form multiple activities with one ribbon. Here's the south elevation. A section depicting underneath the train station arches, like I was saying before, using the maximizing the use of space. East elevation showing the form of the security building, and a section which shows how the ribbons are elevated in the space. So overall, this is an overall axonometric view depicting how the ribbons follow the idea of fluidity in the space that practically creates an active space and yet keeps the element of access to the areas, which makes it a central hub connecting Swinburne with its surrounding. And here's an exploded axle to show you underneath the train stations in a 3D form. And an axle of the security building, which is the new incubator space. Again, the ground floor being both a presentation area and a socializing space, whereas the first floor becoming a more of a study area with the help of the ribboned tectonic structure. And here we have a sectional perspective to give you an idea of the vibe inside the building and how people may interact inside it.
Yeah, so here we have an image of the entrance looking towards the security building and then the Don Arcade, just to give a sense of the initial impact of this installation. Here we can see the Alfred Place view of the security building and the activities that are leading towards the Woolworths and shopping complex. So in these interior renders, we wanted to capture the volumes of light that we were bringing into the building through the use of voids and skylights, and also the different activities and how light plays into these activities and the different moments that we wanted to create. Yeah, so we wanted, as mentioned previously, wanted to keep the structure intact, so we left the staircase and the exterior structure mostly intact, just to keep it as low impact as possible. So in these images, on the top left, we can see a view from the Don Arcade heading towards the security building, and then to our bottom right, we can see that we've moved on from the Don Arcade towards the security building, and then above that we can see the view from underneath the train station arches to better convey the different activities that are happening in this space. So in order, we wanted to create a space that was not only safe during the day, but during the night. And the addition of these ribbons allows us to mount lights and light a space during the night. And just to create a more inviting space at all times of the day. So in this, we wanted to show that we can mount lights to the ribbons as well. They serve as like a light board to create different moods and different vibes of the space. So just to create a greater flexibility of the space.
So we had two construction methods. The first method is the waffle structure, as seen here. And the reason why this is so successful is because it can create fluid geometry, which makes it easier to accurately build freeform structures. This is computer generated, so it uses computer-aided software to form the substructure of the ribbons. And as we can see here, there are 4 layers. So we've got the bamboo veneer, the timber ribs, vertical and horizontal, and then the bottom layer, the bottom veneer. And then we have our model here. So this is a front view of our 1:5 scale model of the waffle structure. Then we have this is the back view of the structure, so you can see here. And then this is a detailed view of our 1:5 scale model.
So our second proposed construction method is the steel rail construction system. It consists of 2 parallel steel rails that follow the curve and are connected by steel bars. And then to that we have steel clips with a steel rail, and then seamless timber cladding is connected to that steel rail. So as illustrated here, we chose this system because it'll stand up better to the perils of public life, the regular abuse. It's quite sturdy, and larger spans can be achieved with fewer connections due to just the nature of the material, and it's also quite weather resistant. So here we have another 1:5 scale model of our construction system. It shows the relation between the steel rail and the timber slats, and then also how the welded legs connect from the frame to the ground.
Yeah, also another thing to note is when making the steel rail, it was a bit hard to create accurate curves. So we made segmented pieces to different directions and weld them together in order to make the curve.
Here we are showing the waffle structure and its parts, being the vertical panels, the horizontal panels, which interlock with each other, and into steel legs into the metal slits for the waffle structure to sit securely in, as seen on the left-hand side. On the top, we can see also a desk with a GPO installed for use such as a computer, a monitor, or phone charging, which will be used inside the security building. And on the bottom, we can see 2 different load-bearing wall connections, being a low load bearing and a high load bearing for either a canopy or a desk or a bench. Here now we can see the steel rail construction method, which shows timber panels, the steel flat rail, the steel frame, and steel clips, which will all be connected together and then attached to the steel legs via welding of the steel frame to the legs. At the top, once again, we can see the desk, which is the GPO installation for use of the inside security building, and along with the low load bearing and high load bearing support wall structure connection. Thank you guys for watching.
Not really clap, but thank you. We can clap virtually. Thanks for this group. Thanks for presentation. That was very well timed. A little bit less than 15 minutes. Perfect. All right. Who would our guest who would like to start with the comment? Let's try Elliot or Manish and Amanda. Alex has been seeing the project since the beginning. Would like to hear the opinion from other guests who's seeing it for the first time.
I can start. I think you well presented. Congratulations, guys. I think you resolved many aspects of your project, and I like the way that you presented and the hierarchy of presentation and the story and narrative. There are a couple of questions. I think in general, your concept for me is more of wayfinding aspect that makes it very attractive. I don't know to what extent you have used your system as a wayfinding system within the urban and interior context. Maybe it worth have a look at that term and whether you can, because I saw that you used it for implementing more of lighting as well as a kind of transformation from sitting to walkways to different transformation that you used for the system. And I think it started for me questioning whether it was a good idea to consider different maybe color or different materiality for the system depending on their function. For example, if you have 3 ribbons in general, that one is more of guiding people to a specific area, would it be better to use maybe darker color for the timber, or whether it worth maybe having different pattern and texture on the surfaces, which would be really interesting to have a look and push the concept probably further, because currently what I see is a very uniform system. And this is the aspect that definitely I would encourage you to have a look as future project. When you have a system implement, maybe you had a diagram showing the concept and iterations and ideation, I would definitely encourage you to have another matrix of iterations showing how you can consider different texture and pattern on the system itself. Other than that, congratulations. I think many aspects of the project is resolved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I actually agree with Manoush. I think you could, I think, again, well done in your presentation. I think there's a lot of detail and it's quite impressive to see, you know, such a young year level producing such high level of work. But I do agree. I think I really like the ribbon. I think it's a really cool concept. But the timber color that you've kind of chosen, it makes it blend in with the space a little bit. And if it was something a bit more vibrant or a bit more catchy, I think it would really stand out, and it really encouraged people to come to the space and explore it and wonder where these different ribbons take you. But one thing I did think you did quite well is you created all those little diagrams that kind of show function and use, and I think that's really important, and that's fantastic, because otherwise what's the point in making the ribbons where you've actually kind of created a purpose for the ribbons, which is fantastic. I wonder if you could take it further and start using maybe performance to guide where these ribbons also occur. So for example, where they actually go above your head and become a canopy space, you know, is that informed, is there an awning situation where it's informed by sunlight and you want to shade an internal space or create some shading externally? You know, could you take that, you know, another level further, maybe if you wanted to continue through the design? And I guess my last comment is I thought your prototypes were fantastic. I can't believe somebody's welded all those steel pieces together. That's unbelievably good. One thing that I thought with that was I wonder if the slat system is is the right way forward, creating all these uniform pieces. I think you'd start running into trouble with that kind of system. So that could perhaps be refined further, but as an initial study, I think it's fantastic. And then I guess my last comment would just be about some of the details that you've added in. So for example, the GPOs, instead of just cutting a hole into your bench top, I wonder, can you actually integrate it within the system so it actually becomes a part of the timber that you pull up, instead of you kind of create it across a cut across all the slats? Can it just be one slat that you kind of pull up that's on a hinge system, or something that's a bit more refined? And similarly with your lights, like could they just be integrated within the curvature of your ribbon? So the ribbon is part of the light, the ribbon is the light. Just some minor details that, you know, perhaps could be refined, but otherwise I think it's a really great project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. I guess it's my turn now. And guys, yeah, as I'll reiterate everybody's comments about it being a pretty cool presentation. You got some really great drawings, so nicely done there. I can't really speak to any of the more architectural or construction oriented aspects of this. It's not my my forte, but mostly my comments would have to do more with sort of why things are where, which was touched on just now as well. Like I'd wonder where what exactly was driving the placement of these ribbons. Like what did you guys have a reason for, you know, why it went up or down in particular places, or the actual placement of it? Like, was there some sort of wayfinding rationale? I don't know, like feel free to jump in and comment that. Like, what was driving this formal language? I didn't really get much of that out of this as a concept. I didn't get too much what's going on programmatically overall, like, and the rationale behind that.
So the ribbons, they help guide. So as you can see in the first diagrams we did.
Yeah. These, right. So what? How did you derive these?
It came. So one of our old models had ribbon kind of form. So from there we went on with the idea of ribbons creating fluidity in space.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really focus much on. We did focus on where the ribbons go, creating seating areas and stuff like that. But with the short amount of time, we need to come up with quick decisions. That's a problem with this project. Like you guys were saying before about choosing colors and stuff, we didn't have much time to really consider a lot of things because we had a lot of things to make, and we redid the model a few times as well to work with the brief and as well.
Yeah, cool. I understand this is construction focused studio, but no massive emphasis on that. But cool project overall. That's my main comment though, is I can't really envision different things happening in different areas. Or I can, but exactly the rationale. Sorry, Captain. Yeah.
Some places, I'll just point out one specific that I know at least stands out for me. Where there's Columbia Street turning into, I think it's what's that street called, the one next to the security building? It's not. I don't think it's Glenferrie Road.
No, I think it's still Columbia. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
So that little part there, that would be somewhere you could sit or lean on waiting for a car. So like that was designed for that area, and then of course we have like the sitting area near the greenery, which would be if you want to eat lunch or study or talk, and then underneath would be more of this private area. So the ribbons do form in ways that we want them to because of the space that they're around, if that kind of answers your question. I don't know if it's...
Yeah. To an extent, I would go like one level up. Probably I'll be saying more or less the same thing for everybody's project, I imagine. But like what do you really think is going on in this area? Like what do you think this area's focus is as a role in the broader context or in Swinburne Uni or whatever?
Yeah, it's to create
the linking space.
Social space as well. Like, every time we go to Dawn Arcade to get food, we realize it's not a place to sit.
We can't sit anywhere.
like you always like, where do
Cool.
so this gives you a kind of an easy option. Just look and be like, oh, there's some seating areas. Let's go here.
Okay, cool. All
And
right.
you walk through there anyway, so you might as well just neat.
Make it nice and have a seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's not a great spot for hanging out often. Anyway, cool. That's it for me, guys. So good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
I think that's very good point. And as I mentioned before, one diagram. But firstly, really well done. But remember, we talked about one diagram where you have a series of those activity diagrams, and the second diagram should be how these gets distributed across the site and why. I think that is the diagram that you are missing, and I think it's very valuable to have people like Elliot commenting your project, because as architects, we very often get very too focused on our little well, and then start looking, the construction is cool, everything is cool, but don't forget at the end of the day, we have to convince people who has different focus. Is this even worth building before you figure out that is so cool to build? So this is just one general comment that I'm going to make only once, but keep this in mind, and that's what makes the presentation feedback valuable for everyone. Treating yourself as an architect, think about how other people see your work very differently from how you see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chen.
Thanks, Chen.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, guys.
Thank you, Chad.
Can you go to the site plan again? Yeah, the dark one.
The floor plan.
Yeah, that one. Because I think here is where you see more the rationale behind your idea. At the moment, that current site sidewalk, which is currently occupied by car spaces, and that almost looks like an abandoned area, back alley, with some garbage bins. It's really narrow. You barely can walk on it. So it's quite like really well put together the way that you guys widened that sidewalk and turned it now into an actual public space. And also your ribbons are a really fantastic way of differentiating spaces and creating barriers. Because when you have a big plaza and there's nothing in it, it doesn't organize the way people move through it. But so by creating those round and all those barriers, you're pretty much forcing people to either move around it or creating some kind of dynamic movement through the space. So I think, yeah, really well done, guys. And I've already told you throughout the semester how great your project is. So keep going.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you. Second group, please. Frame. I need to be a little bit stricter on time, so that we don't run into the other presentation session. All right. Please share screen. Control L. If you're using Mac, it's Command L. Yeah. All right. Please start. Ken, you are muted, or your audio is not connected properly. I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear sound.
Is that better? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. All right, sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'll restart that. So good morning, everyone. We're Frame Link. Our design team consists of me, Keen, Corey, and Mubin. And basically, Frame Link is our rational answer to the Glenferrie placemaking project.
So the Swinburne Security Building is located in Swinburne, the heart of Swinburne University of Columbia Street and Don Arcade. And just adjacent to the Swinburne Building, Security Building, is the Glenferrie Railway Station. And as a result of the railway train tracks, there is a high train sound in the vicinity. And also as a result of the train station, students like to use public transport. So there's a high foot traffic density in Don Arcade, but it does disperse as it goes along as students go to their classes. There's also no rain shelter across Don Arcade, which makes a messy day during rainy days. Yeah. So also there's no symbolic structure that represents the university, which is kind of sad. There's a lack of raw materials used. There's absolutely no link between the security building and the external space. There's a lack of interesting activities, a lack of space utilization, and an outdated security facade. So overall, a very neglected area of what appears to be the gateway of the university.
So our design goal, basically, to answer the placemaking project, is we wanted to connect the interior space and the exterior. So basically linking them and making it one, I guess, one united space. Here's just a section cut on like the proposed design area. As you can see, our design will wrap around the front of the security building as well as the top and across the train station. So some precedents we looked at were these very, I guess, space frames, jungle gym type aesthetics. We really like this scaffold structure, how people can circulate through it and how they can interact with it. So we broke down our design process into 4 steps. Step 1, analysis. We located existing entrances, walls that can be torn down, and existing windows. Step 2, divided the space into little cubicles to make it more practical for designing. Step 3, added circulation within the grids to give a sense of movement and how people can interact with our design space. And step 4, we added our final scaffold design over it. So some activities that you might see in our design space, first and foremost, we're choosing to use a scaffolding structure. So we really wanted to keep that core component of what scaffoldings are used for in construction, circulation. So we have horizontal and vertical circulation, but we also wanted to push our ideas and see what else we can do with it, make it more fun and interactive. So we have the sitting platform. If you put some garden beds within our design, you can turn it into a community garden, some pop-up retail stores, place some tables and stands, and you can sell coffee there. Hang a hammock and it creates an outdoor comfort. Hang a projector screen, it becomes an outdoor entertainment area. Place some obstacles within our scaffold design and it'll become a playground.
So the current interior looks very boring, isn't very interesting, and feel very confined. If you were to be standing in the building, be very confined. As for entering the space itself, is lacking a strong purpose to draw people in and make them stay. Our solution to the current problems involve us integrating our design throughout the building, thus opening up through changes to the interior walls, which can be seen later on in more detail in the renders. The space is now made more inviting for people to stay and more of a purpose to hang out in. The same goes with the first floor. The current space shares similar problems, with it being closed off and not a whole lot of purpose to stay in the building. Our solution was remove the walls once again to achieve a more open-styled floor plan with the option of privacy, which can be seen in the meeting rooms. There are 3 separate accesses to the our facade, which can be seen at the front by the green wall and the station. So here's the old floor plan, and here's the new one. Same goes with the first floor. You can see our green wall that we've added to make it a more lively space. We've also added more circulation route throughout the building, which can be seen in this. Here's just an animation of so our elevations have a transparent space frames, which can be seen for our elevations, with multiple entrances to the building on each level, so it can easily be maneuvered around. Same goes here. We made sure that the space frames don't interfere with your day-to-day lives, so they don't hit your head on the space frame when walking underneath. The frames themselves are 2.5 meters by 2 meters, which is enough to fit a small car under, which can be seen later on.
So yeah, I guess our design, we put a high focus on human interactivity. As you can see, like Corey mentioned before, we have multiple staircases. This is to reduce the foot traffic along Columbia Street. We have direct access from the train station to the rooftop, train station straight down to the street, or train station to the first or ground floor of the security building. In this angle, you can see that it is well above head height. You have no trouble bumping into your head. It does not interfere with your life. Instead, it interacts. So people can actually use this as a circulation space. From this angle, you can see how, I guess, the transparency that our design brings in, and how even though it's just a simple scaffold, you can actually push it way more than that, adding little obstacles and little playground equipments like such. As such, you can create a really fun and interactive space with it. So just another angle. Yep. In this angle, I guess I really wanted to show you that even though these are just standard cubicles, you can tell that you can play with the levels of the space, making it more fun when interacting it and traversing through our space. So one of our strong points was actually the projector screen idea. So imagine if Swinburne University were to hold a movie night here, you can just hang a projector screen and put on a display for people. So our interior renders, we actually translated and extended our scaffold design into interior spaces, further creating that link between our inner and outer space. So these scaffold structures actually go through the building, and you can see we create them into personal meeting rooms on the first floor. But on the ground floor, we created entertainment rooms, put a pool table in it, and yeah. From this angle, you can see that we opened up the space, creating these wide open glass doors, allowing people to transition in and out of the security building with ease using our circulation space. And I guess just keep note of the multiple large window panels already existing, really creates that sense of transparency.
So for the joinery details, our Tectonic concept was our goal was to change a traditional scaffold into an aesthetically pleasing structure while maintaining structural rigidity. The concept consists of cubes stacked on top of each other with vertical cross bracing, and the concept is held by metal plates bolted to the joints. So our first joinery concept consists of metal plates molded around the existing joints. However, this is expensive due to the bending and welding required. Also needs a long time to construct and is weak due to lack of supporting tabs on the metal plates. So we came up with another joinery concept, and this time we just made it into flat metal plating that it connects directly to the frame. So in this one we got rid of the bending and welding, which means it's cost effective. Also, it requires less time for production, which means we can manufacture it off-site and load it onto trucks and bring it on site to be assembled. It has stronger connections, but it has a weak vertical load due to this vertical column which extends throughout the whole structure. So we went ahead and developed that concept, and all we done was rotated it 90 degrees, which means the vertical column now is horizontal, and that means we can withhold larger vertical load. So we went ahead and prototyped our joinery method, and it turned out to be very successful. So here are some pictures, and as you can see, it's held by 7 bolts and a plate. Some more pictures. We went ahead and designed a scaled model of the scaffolding Tectonic, and we discovered that the horizontal timber components have a bit of flexibility, and means it's impractical for the real world to be designed there. So if we wanted to further develop our concept, we'll have to look into other tectonic methods. And I just wanted to go quickly through the bolts and screws versus nails. We found out that bolts/screws are more brittle, but however, they have a strong tensile strength, which means no lateral movement, but they are expensive. Nails, on the other hand, they bend, which means they have a strong shear strength, and that means there is no sideway movement, and they're relatively inexpensive. So as you can see, it's a pretty simple method to assemble the frame. It just needs someone to assemble the front of the frame by the bolts and plates, add the cross bracing, and then just add the horizontal components, and that's it. So for further exploring our Tectonic, we looked into other methods, and we found a company called Simpson Strong Tie, which design metal plates for specific timber for precision fitting. It's efficient in assembly, has strong connections, it's up to building standards, and is off-the-shelf product. Another Tectonic is Japanese Joinery. It has durable joints, it's flexible, does not require any hardware, which means it's relatively inexpensive. Well, that concludes our project's frame link. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, who would like to, let me give you a virtual clap first. Who would like to start with the comment? Amanda, perhaps you could.
Okay. I think I thought your presentation again was really good. So good effort. I think a couple of things for me that I would have liked to see, like I like your diagrams again of how these modules relate to different uses. But I also wonder if you thought of exploring modules of different sizes to relate to different modules. For example, can one module be broken down into 4, and then those smaller modules, can they be used for example, seating? So then does the breaking down of those modules, can that create more adaptability and flexibility for creating different scales of uses and spaces?
Okay. We didn't directly play around with the direct scale of I guess our scaffold structure, but I guess we did play around with like what we can do within those little cubicles, as you can see in our playground obstacle course here. But yeah, I think with further time, I think we could like further develop it, play around with the scale and make it more interesting.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I think it's a really interesting proposal, and it's a big transformation of the space that you're creating. So I quite like how you kind of gone about it. The
Thank
only thing that I would say is I think for your joinery, I would like to see some prototypes of the different things that you're talking about. So I know you prototyped the steel joint.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to see maybe an example of the Japanese joinery as well. This joint for me is a little clunky. I think it could be further refined. And you kind of looked into different bolts and how that could happen. But perhaps what you could do is look at all precedents that have done similar things with timber and see how they've gone about doing their joinery, because there's some really great refinements out there that are relatively cost effective and that can be handled within the fabrication process as well. But other than that, I think it's a great project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for Elliot as well. Can you bring Keen? Can you bring a view where you show how you create the extra circulation for the train station?
Yes.
So I think
this one.
I think that's a better view from the other side. Yeah, keep it here. It's fine. Sorry.
With that? Okay, cool.
So I think across the unit, I could see quite a few of groups from different studio has proposed this new train exit from the train station. I can't really give too much informed suggestions or feedbacks, and I guess that's where I would need your expertise and your thoughts, Elliot. I think you're muted. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. I think I'm unmuted now, hopefully. Yeah, look, I remember ages ago investigating where and how to put a new train platform of the station, maybe like 5 to 6 years ago. And basically the only real spot is where you've got it. It's depending on how the rest of it comes together. But I think for me, when I look at this, is I don't understand. I'm going to repeat myself for all of you, I'm sure, but I don't really understand what this is, like this structure. Like it looks like a place to hang out, right? That's what it looks like to me, which is cool. Obviously, I like that. But if you're going to attach it to the train station, who's it for? Is it for students, or is it for people, or what? You know, and it's quite a big space as well. That's like a lot of hanging out space. It's the whole building and all the area around it. Like that's a lot, right? So that's where I'm a bit. Also, as a layman, in terms of architectural construction, I don't know if I would trust this structure. It looks a bit flimsy to me. Even if it's not actually, I don't think that matters. People's perception is really important. So there's that. Like, it's the gateway to Swinburne, I guess, but this is also a huge train station in the east side of Melbourne, right? So there's my main comment on this one. But in terms of linking into the station at all, or adding another entrance exit, absolutely, I think that's a good idea. It probably will happen at some point in future, but how that ties into the greater program is quite important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any last comment, Manish?
I think in general, well done. There are many aspects of the project that is resolved. However, there are a couple of questions, same as what Elliot mentioned. I would definitely encourage you to have a look at the audience and users of the space, especially because you have many stairs. And I was wondering if you have considered accessibility and imagine that people might be on wheelchair and wanted to have same experience as other people. Is it inclusive design, or have you excluded them from the design? This was my main concern when I looked at, while your system has lots of potentials and it is a great result in some aspect, the only concern that I have is inclusive design, that to what extent you have considered those people within your design. And do you have any answer right now, or is it something that you wanted to expand it further?
I think definitely, like our design right now, I do feel it's a bit exclusive, because we haven't really catered towards the I guess movement impaired people. I think for like if we were to further push this design along, we would take into account what Elliot said, make it more structurally sound, because I think that that's really important, and also definitely just more accessible for everyone, because this is meant to be a circulation space for
Exactly.
a lot of
And
people.
it is good. At the end of the day, guys, you are presenting, and when you present, when you are within the project, it's very hard to capture many aspects of the project. But when you present it to audience, and it is our job as architects, you present because of getting feedback, and sometimes feedback open new angle to your project,
definitely.
and new perspective to that you can push it further to that area, which is great to have such session that different people from different background coming to comment on your work. And it is really part of our job in design. Usually you get feedback from clients, stakeholders, from your own team, and you need to consider many aspects in your design. And design is complex. Seriously, it is not at all linear, and this is what most of the students struggle when they enter architecture, because it is very different to engineers, that it's a very straightforward line. You know the answer at the end. They are very good at certain things, but in design you should know many things, and it's like ocean with sometimes little depths. Therefore, this is why providing feedback is very essential in our discipline, and it's in practice it's same.
Yeah, thank you.
Any last word to add, Alex?
Well done, guys. I really like this project. It reminds me of the Pompidou Center in Paris. And very similar to the Pompidou, where they inverted the building, where all of the spaces are inside, but then on the outside, they placed all of the services. It seems like on yours, you've reversed the building, and now you have all of the circulation on the outside, and then all of the spaces that are on the inside are purely habitable spaces. So what it does is that it maximizes the net lettable area, if this would be an office, for example, because circulation typically is about 20% of a building. So it's a great way. The only thing is that normally you have a setback or you have a tidal boundary, and you typically can't do a projection, although you might, I don't know, maybe negotiate with the city, and that's where Elliot will come in, and maybe they'll give you an allowance or a variance that allows you to actually project past your tidal boundary, because you're actually creating a vertical garden or a park or some amenity. That might help, for example, when you exit the train station at the moment, because all of us have taken that train station. It's really congested. Everybody going down those ramps, it almost looks like a herd. If there will ever be like a situation of panic, I could almost imagine people trampling each other. Actually having some way of removing bottlenecks on that station when you exit, for example, by creating multiple exits, it's a great strategy. And it's almost as if your space is a lobby of trying to get out of the station that allows to alleviate the it's just a congestion of all of these people, but it also allows the students to go into this space that they probably would never have gone into, and it's just like a distributor space. So yeah, really well done. And I think the structural issues that you guys have, it's just that the material maybe is wrong. Like I think if you do a steel, it would allow you to keep those members as small as you've designed them.
Yeah.
To the So Sujimoto Serpentine Pavilion in London.
Yeah.
So just switch the material, and I think it would be completely different. And then it would also change the type of node that you do. So it's not just like a member and a plate, but it's an actual node, and it could be welded, and it would just look nicer. But really well done. It's almost like a universal system that allows for any type of function to be embedded inside each of the modules. So really well done.
Please get ready. Please share screen. Control L. All right, we can see the full screen. Please start. Hey, Haley, we can't hear you. Same problem as what?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So our group is Twist. I'm Haley, and we have Amy, Stephen, and Will in our group.
So our project, we chose Site 2, the Swinburne Gateway to Hawthorn, to create the incubator space. So as it is an access point from Glenferrie Road to Swinburne, we want to create a space that joins these places together to create a more inviting space for people to enjoy and socialise and to study. And so this is a more up-close view of the Swinburne security building. So we kind of want to open up this space and create a new facade and interior. So these are what the building looks like. So as you can see, it's not very appealing. It's quite dull and quite a neglected area. So we want to change the facade and the interior to create a more of a special space for people to visit and to enjoy.
So obviously the building is like a solid and unwelcoming block. We wanted to make the building more transparent and welcoming, and so we decided to explore a more delicate and curtain-like concept, which would make the building more transparent and organic. And from this idea, we further looked at more tectonic precedents, such as the Korean lounge, which also explores transparency through twists and bends and contoured elements, which is what we wanted to include. And from this, we can make like functional elements like seating or leaning areas, table areas as well. And this sort of twisting concept is also shown in the Swinburne AMDC building, which we chose to link our security building to make it more of a Swinburne gateway. And so how we developed this, so we chose the surface and we divided the surface, and then we offset the contours with twists and bends in them. And then when we lofted these contours to create the fins, and then the fins became rotated and twisted because of the bends in the second set of contours. And then these fins are rotated at 50 degrees from the building with rotations on them at up to 65 degrees, and then glass was placed in between them, and the glass direction was determined by the sun. So as you can see here, we have the sun path, which determined the glass direction. So on the northern Can you just go back to the sun path? Okay, so on the northern facade, we have the glass facing the west due to the sunset, and on the eastern facade, we have the glass facing the southeast due to the sunrise. And the twists in the facade are influenced by a subtle image of an Australian native flower. We chose this flower to reflect growth in the Glenferrie area, which is a part of the placemaking project. So like growing in the area. The image was then translated into black and white with the dark and light areas influencing the twists. And we then added seating and leaning elements on the facade. And so you can see from this angle, the fins on the facade are facing one way, and then the seating and leaning elements that come off them. And here's a render showing that as well. You can see people sitting on the facade, as well as the different effects that the daylight and then the sunset give off.
So this is some of the functions that we can use for the interior sort of spaces using the similar sort of tectonic language from the facade. So we sort of got like stairs, seating, some sort of more curvy sort of seating to create a more playful sort of design. Also the last picture there is shelving. There was also some others, but it seems to have gone. For our proposed interior changes, so as you can see, the floor plans currently it's not a very open sort of inviting space, very closed off. So we're planning, what shows in the blue is what we're demolishing. So we want to demolish this to create more open spaces, also create meeting areas, private spaces and social spaces. We're trying to keep some of the structural elements such as like the columns and also the stair wall and the stair wall behind it. This is like our bubble diagram, sort of roughly where we're planning to put some of the things. So on the first ground floor, you can see a public sort of study lounge, the kitchen, stair and entry, which we're keeping the same. And then also like a small exhibition space, and then the canopy at the back. And then on the first floor, we've got private meeting areas, a meeting room, and then more public and study lounge. So this is the new plans for the incubator space. So as you can see, we're using the similar tectonic language to create more playful sort of curvature with the walls, seating and like lounge spaces. You can see it's a very open sort of space for the ground floor. And then on the second, the walls for the meeting rooms and the private meeting rooms as well, sort of create privacy. And then on the right-hand side, you can see it's more of an open space as well. And then this is also our roof plan. So you can see the canopy at the back and then also the facade and the roof. We've also chosen to use like the similar tectonic language for the roof as well. And then this is the original security building on the left of an axonometric of it. And then on the right is our new building for it. So you can see a part, the canopy pulled out and the facade, and you can see some of the interior as well.
So this is our site plan, obviously, with the security building in the middle, and then we've looked into some street furniture as well, which is down on the right side there. So again, just some renders of the street furniture. So it ties in with the rotations of the fins on the building facade and canopy as well. It just allows for some seating along that street there as well.
And these are our elevations, so you can sort of see like the subtle image of flowers in the facade, as well as the seating and leaning elements.
So our sections, section A is just looking back towards the train station, and then B is looking back towards Glenferrie Road. So this is us on, I don't know what street it's called, Columbia maybe, looking back towards the northern facade, and we've got that access down to the Woolworths as well. So you can, there's seating incorporated on that back canopy as well. So a bit of an incubator space as well. So hope this works. Doesn't come through great over Zoom, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe we'll just move past that one. That didn't work out as great. That's a good point. So these are just some nighttime renders of the building. We looked into lighting, different, obviously the sunlight, different times of the day, but also different lighting hues, saturations, colors, things like that. Yeah. Again, so that's the entrance facade just on the left there with the doorway, and then we're looking back towards, back into Swinburne campus on the right there. On the left, we've got that exhibition space that we talked about. So a bit of room for hanging and also kind of like a bench about hip height for models and prototypes, things like that. And then behind the exhibition space, that same wall on the right side is just another benching, seating kind of open space. And then as we go upstairs, and then we're looking back towards the SBW building there with the, obviously we can see the roof design there and the seating and benching and everything inside. And then as we turn around on the second floor, we're looking back towards Glenferrie on the left there. And so we've got private kind of study spaces on the right, and then a big meeting room on the left there. Oh, sorry, on the right.
So to construct the facade, we started with a flat plane of lines, and then the lines rotated, which was influenced by the image of the flower. We then offset the lines to make them twisted at the end points of the smaller lines, and then we lofted them, which created the twisted fins on the edge of the building. And then in between were the flat panels of glass that sit in between each of the lofted fins. We chose to do that instead of just putting a flat piece of glass on the back to sort of affect the light in a way and to make it like a facade system rather than like attaching the fins on top of the facade. And then you can see here how it's sort of joined together, and then like the seating that was added on top as well.
Okay, the construction detail of the Korean louvers and glass joining process. So the glass is joined to the steel frame, and the steel frame joins to the oak wood waffle structure, which is cladded with Korean. And then here is just the continuation of the joining process of the Korean louvers and glass, as well as a section cut and a top view of this construction detail. Now, this is another construction detail of how the Korean louvers and glass is attached to the building. So there is a steel plate that has holes for bolts to be placed and connects to the building and the Korean pieces. And the steel plate attaches to the top of each floor slab.
Just go to the next slide, Stephen.
It says my connection's unstable. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's better.
Yep. Is it on initial prototyping?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is some of the initial prototyping done to create the twisted louver effect. One with acrylic using a heat strip heater, and the other a timber model using a laser cutter. Here is the prototyping development. So we thought the best way to create this twisted louver shape was to create a jig system. And here are some of the first sketches on the initial jig and revised jig system done.
The next slide.
Is that good? There you go. I think my computer's slow. Is that all right now?
Yeah.
So here is the prototyping development. So we thought the best way to create this twisted louver shape was to create a jig system. And here are some of the first, so use the strip heater to make the acrylic pieces soft to then be placed into the jig system to be twisted. Then try the heat gun with the jig system, which was more successful. And also there is some of the twisted acrylic outcomes. Is that showing?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the final jig system for the twisted pieces of acrylic. Overall, quite a successful construction system, even though it undertook plenty of changes. Sorry.
Is it working?
It's working on my end.
It's not showing on here. Well, anyway, the last slides were about models, but I can just show you on here if they won't load.
Yes, please.
Yeah, anyway, so this is like one of our models of the facade. So you can.
Sorry, Stephen, you need to unshare the screen, otherwise Haley's pop up onwards. Yep.
Yep. So there's one of our models. You can see the seating down here and how the fins are sort of on a rotation. And in this area, I added some glass, which might be hard to see, but anyway, there's that. And as you twist it, you can sort of see different sort of waves in the facade. And then we have another one as well. You can sort of see like a flower here. You can see like different waves as well, and sort of the image better at different angles. And that side as well. And then we have our final prototype, which was twisted in the jig with heat as well. I had images with different colored lights on it, which looked good, but obviously that wasn't working.
I'll try and just put that up really quickly. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can sort of see like how they reflect off the more like flatter part twists, and to see like a better image, like the flower down there. And yeah.
All right. Thank you. Okay, more time, but that's okay. Thanks for presenting. All right. Can you bring back your share slide and so that you can make comments? Thank you. Who would like to start?
Can I just start because I have to leave, but I wanted to just stay and say congratulations, first of all, for your project. And I know the difficulties of presenting on Zoom. Unfortunately, I would have loved to see your model, and unfortunately, because of lockdown, for sure, we cannot have that physical exhibition. But I think what distinguishes your project from others is that you played with light and you presented the gesture of your project over a period of time, like day versus night, which is very great to see. Part of the place making is creating different atmosphere and considering time as a factor, and I think you did it very well in your project. There are a couple of questions. For example, why have you picked flower to reflect on the louver's rotation and representing that, which maybe I missed it in your presentation, or was there any particular rationale behind your selection of the image?
So we chose a flower obviously because it's Australian native, so sort of bringing like nature into the area that also reflects Australia, as well as using a flower to sort of represent like growth, because the Glenferrie placemaking area is about like growth in the area, like growing the spaces, and yeah.
Yeah, and the other question that I have is, why have you picked monocolor, like white? Just white. Is it your final selection of the material, or have you played with different colors in general for daytime? For nighttime, I understand you reflected different colors.
Are you meaning like the material of the actual facade? We looked at a couple of different like Korean things, and we got some samples and looked at some darker colors as well, but found that it just, with the dark Korean against the existing brick that we're not taking away, it just didn't kind of really work, if that makes sense, throughout the daytime.
Yeah, the other thing that I see as potential in your project is if you go to one of the renders that you wrap the entire building, like this one, I would definitely encourage you to have a look at exposing the existing brick walls and material in some areas of your facade, rather than wrapping the whole things into that entire system. Maybe trying to push it further and sometimes let the existing condition overcome or play role in the predominant language, presenting the predominant language rather than always overcoming with your system language. But other than this, well done.
Thank you. Yeah, we looked into having those brick columns in front of the facade, but again, it didn't work out. We didn't actually show it in the presentation, unfortunately, but we did.
Sometimes it is good to just show the trial errors, because when you present, it shows how well you consider different factors and then come up with a final solution because you tried and didn't work maybe, or because of your certain criteria, and that is convincing clients and stakeholders or audience in general.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll start off by saying I think your your facade is very, very cool. I like it a lot. There was a couple of things that was a little bit unconvincing, I think, for me. And that's, you started off by saying that your concept was about transparency and welcoming, but there's a couple of things with transparency. So when I look at your facade, especially like a render like this, it doesn't look transparent to me. It actually looks quite solid. And so some things I would have liked to see that would have convinced me otherwise is some views from the inside and what can I see looking out, and maybe some views from the outside and how that feels as you walk past and go around. I think the the functionality that you've brought from the fins and how you've created seating and things like that is very clever, and I like that a lot. But a couple of other things that weren't convincing to me was how realistic it is. So although I think your prototype started convincing me a bit more as you went to the end, but I think your drawings and your diagrams didn't quite sell the project in a way that perhaps it should have. You know, just things like glass has, you know, divisions and mullions, roofing has structure, just little things that kind of didn't quite sell your project, I think. Yeah, I think they're my biggest comments. I'm curious to hear what Elliot has to say about placemaking, because I see that it's like one of his specialties. But I really like the flower idea on the facade. I think it's quite nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll jump in now then. Yeah, look, I mean, it looks cool. But and I guess though in these renders, as a point was just made, like it doesn't actually look particularly transparent, but I'm sure it would be in practice, but only visually, really. You know. And in fact, like I would be much more interested to see a bit more functional permeability going on here. Like visual permeability is great, but if you can't go into a building very easily, it doesn't really feel like it's part of anything. You know, and I don't, one thing again, and I'm going to repeat myself again, but I don't, like, to me, this building is just like a student thing. Like it didn't really get much of a strong theme or concept out of it. Like a bit of an incubator space, sure, I got that, but like incubation of what and why? And if you like really drill down into that stuff, I feel like you could probably have come out with I mean, the building looks pretty cool, right? But maybe a stronger theme, like maybe if you're incubating, I don't know. Yeah, let's say it's, I don't know, like a sculpture, I don't know, practice or something like that. Then you could really figure out where and why a particular gallery space went somewhere, and that would drive the whole design in a very different direction. Or maybe different types of things like that. And then like, why would it be incubating that? Like somebody in the real world, somebody like me would give you a brief for what this building is supposed to be, but it could be fairly vague. Like it might just be, give us some incubation space. And then you guys can give really cool advice about what and how that space could work, and how to arrange it in a way that's really compelling. Like an incubation building to me it's not that exciting, right? Really. It just that can be as boring as a bunch of little offices. So if you push that a bit further, this goes for probably everybody too. I feel like you could make me as the client a lot more excited about how to arrange this and what the driving force of that space could be. Like to me, this basically comes across as a generic, trendy uni building with some rooms inside it and a little gallery, which is fine, but it's pretty boring. There's loads of that out there. So yeah, like maybe you could have a big gallery facing the train station, so people on the train can come see the cool sculptures or the whatever the Swinburne students are making. Stuff like that would change how this whole design looks and works, right? But anyway. On the real placemaking element, like cool, you paid a bit of attention to the context with some seating and things like that outside, but I still, I don't know, I don't know, as a person just coming to Swinburne, or sorry, to Glenferrie, I don't know if I'd walk past this building and I don't know what I'd get out of it, you know, like I'm sure something, but if you guys were presenting to me, I'd really want you to be like, this is what it's, you know, this is what your experience going past this building would be like, why we think it's a really good thing, a really good addition, you know. Obviously it's better than the security building. It's you know, not hard, but yeah. But look, overall, I think it looks great. I really like the models. They're really cool. How did you make them again? You 3D printed laser cut it and put it together. Like that stuff's really cool for me to see, because I don't do much of that. I find it really nice to, much more tangible when presented like that, a design. So yeah, look, cool, cool project, cool renders. Everybody has such good renders. That's cool. And yeah, I think you'd come out a bit stronger if your I don't know, core theme was a bit stronger as well. That's my main comment here. But otherwise, cool presentation and good work, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say one thing about the transparency thing. So it doesn't look transparent in those renders because of the angle. Like if you're on a different angle, like the whole side is just glass.
Yeah. That's I figure that. But if you're presenting to, like, I understand that, of course, but some people, if you were to like paste these up or put them to the community generally, some people really do not interrogate things much at all. So you could put somebody off, just a random person, with a render, even if it is of glass, but because they can't see it in that picture, they're like, oh no, it's a giant metal wall. Just that, like, they're simple, no joke, really. Because people take things very viscerally and simply. But of course, yeah, it's glass facade, huh? So yeah, cool.
Thank you very much. That's very good comment. In terms of that really brings the perspective that even as a tutor, sometimes I'm on the side of the student, sometimes looking into too much of the details of the building and not thinking enough of the overall, the place and what the building is really about. But hopefully everyone can really take in these comments, and that will make you a much better designer later on. So please do listen to the comment and really take them in. Anyone wants to add last minute comment?
Well done.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just probably want to add a comment just quickly about the presentation, because everyone else just covered everything about the design. Maybe just a suggestion, it's my personal opinion, maybe not apply to everyone, but as a reviewer or as someone looking into a project, I'm not really interested in how you modeled your building. Getting too much into the details of how you modeled your building in Rhino or Grasshopper by twisting, by lofting, by like those technical terms is probably not that much exciting for people looking into a project. They are just more interested in getting quickly getting into the details of the design, which is more exciting part, like renders, models, and they're waiting for that for a long time, and it's just explaining about the how you modeled it with like multiple diagrams. It was probably like 4 or 5 slides if I'm not making any mistake, but it was a great presentation, a great project. I just wanted to mention this, maybe if you want to consider it for your next presentations.
That's very good comment.
Thank you.
So maybe this is for everybody. When you present your renders, try to avoid placing multiple renders on one sheet. Because when you put them on a presentation, they look really tiny. So always try to blow up your renders, like one sheet per image.
Yeah, even in audio, you're just degrading the value of your renders by putting multiple renders together.
All right, we're gonna speed up. Thank you very much. Is Group Delta ready? Group Delta?
We're ready, but I think...
Pardon? Please share screen if you're ready.
Are we happy to go next?
Sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
That's why you got confused. Yeah, my bad. It's a Muse. Sorry.
Yeah, I was lost too. That's all good.
I'm just making sure.
Muse, good for Muse, please. My bad.
Am I good to share screen? Chen, have you given me the option?
Yes, please.
Let me know if that's up now.
Yep, it is up.
Cool. Are my other team members? Yep, you guys are good to go?
We're good, man.
Cool. Give me 2 seconds on my end. All right, guys, this is a Muse. So I'm Tyson. I also worked with Luca and Tristan on this one. A Muse, we got the name from basically the play on words amusement, because as you'll see, we've got a very fun and exciting new presentation for our security building. And a Muse is the definition of a Muse is actually basically an inspiration for someone like an artist or like a musician as well. So it's kind of a play on words. So Tristan, do you want to introduce the site for us?
Yeah, so the Swinburne security building is in a prime location
to Glenferrie Road and the university itself. As you can see, it's near a food complex as well as public transport. The building itself is in a prime location for foot traffic, as it has many coffee shops and food shops within the area, but fails to attract people to walk through this area due to the non-vibrant colours. You can see the raw material on the buildings and the uninviting car park that it holds there. Just looking at the raw material, it's not the vibe isn't there, and a lot of people tend to stay away from this area, and it's not inviting. The colours aren't there as well. It's very degrading of the area and brings it down, I feel.
As Tristan just mentioned as well, it's not inviting. And I know personally as a student, I don't actually use this area at all. When exiting the Glenferrie station, I will naturally be drawn to the right-hand side and will avoid walking through this section. So that's one of the things we're trying to really tackle on this task is how can we actually draw people to the site? Next slide, please. And one of the key reasons as to why we want to draw people to the site is its prime location within the university. It's right next to the Glenferrie station. It is quite literally within the center of the university, and it's just a totally underutilized space. One of the driving forces behind our project is the fact that post-pandemic, we're trying to reassess the workplace. We've proven the fact that we can work from home. So why should we go back to a more conventional, restricted workplace? So one of the issues we're trying to tackle is how can we transform the workplace to bring it up to like a higher standard? Why can't a workplace be fun? Due to this, the precedent that we drew probably the most inspiration from is one of the largest organizations in the world, being Google headquarters. They've proven the fact that like a huge conglomerate organization doesn't have to have a rigid workspace. It can be fun, like the implementations of a slide, just key to showing this concept. Next slide, please. And in terms of this, when we were coming up with the initial idea for this project, we began very simply. We were like, right, what's fun? Like, what is design in its core concept? And we were drawn to the fact that as children, you know, we play with blocks. This is raw design, and what we thought would be fun is how can we like impact this design with terms of blocks and in aspects of like almost just throwing the blocks at the site and then having it manipulated through this. So we found Yvonne Audette, which is a local artist to the Glenferrie region. We did a bit of research on her and we found out that she was recently put on the Queen's list this year. So that's a huge achievement for her. A little bit of a background on her is that she's been basically practicing as an artist for most of her life. She's traveled internationally and she's known as predominantly for her abstract artworks. So when it came to actually implementing this was a great, a great inspiration and homage how we could tie her artwork to the site and then the actual Glenferrie region itself. So when we started development on this project, you can already see these elements can be implemented to break up spaces. And that was exactly what our driving force was going forward for our concept. So as I said, we started pulling out elements of these using shapes, color to see if we could start seeing some things come to life. And through straight extrusion, you could already see these being implemented as walls, as you can see here. But if we took them down, not to full height, could be used as furniture, which we developed further later on. So as I said, you can see here, we're just playing around with what we can actually extrapolate from this. And we didn't want to deviate too far from the artwork. We wanted to keep the simple premise of, playful blocks because it resembles, our initial concept. But also this just gives us a lot more function, a lot more purpose and just ties it to the greater context.
Just looking at the existing site, we can see that on the lower ground that there's a lot of open space, but not many meeting rooms. And then for the first floor, we can see that it's a lot congested and it's not as open as downstairs area is. And we wanted to try and explore the limits of having an office area, but also keeping it within its limits as well.
Yeah, so as Tristan was saying, our aim was to basically, we wanted to reimagine these, and as Luca was saying, we wanted to reimagine these places, and we wanted to still create like collaborative spaces as well as individual places to occupy, but we didn't want to do it with just, typical full height walls or, little pods. We wanted to do it in fun and creative ways. So simply our premise was to overlay the artwork over the site. And then this developed into actually what was very, very similar to our final concept. This, as I said, didn't deviate too far from our initial inspiration of the artwork, and also gave us a lot of reason and purpose for location due to the circulation path and actually, fitting the function.
Yeah, so here we have the repurposed first floor. Our initial concept for the first floor was to create a semi-open incubated space. But with the segregation of different heights and levels, this creates a more open student space for studying, socializing. And then if you go to the second floor, please. So with the second floor, our main premise for this was to create a little bit more private and more intimate spaces. This is used again through different extractions and heights. And this creates just a little bit of private spaces for more intricate meetings. Proposals, things like that. Here we have the north elevation. One of the key concepts that we really wanted to push forward was not having a rigid transition from inside to out. We wanted the site itself to be a more experience on both elements. And here we also have the other elevation as well. So it's almost like a seamless transition from inside to out. That way they're not so structured and rigid. Here we have this section. The section showcases a bit more of the segregation through different levels and heights, and also the key implementation of the fact that when we're extruding these shapes, it's not just in a linear sense. We're also getting these elements and twisting them and extruding them through the building to create really intricate spaces, and inclusions of elements such as the skylight.
Just from the exploded axo, you can see how each area is being used and utilized. We can see there's a lot of seating areas, an area where on the top floor, you can see it's like a meeting area. All the areas are different and they hold different values and can be utilized in different ways. So as we were talking about earlier, there's two main functions to this space, and it's in a really interesting location where we need to balance a lot of foot traffic going from A to B. We got to realize that this is forming an entrance basically to the university from a main transport system being the station. But we also didn't want it to be something you walk past and don't want to actually intrigue. So as Luca mentioned earlier, we wanted to keep a lot of the elements, nothing on the facade. We wanted to actually allow people to explore and be like, what is actually going on in there? Hence why we kept a lot of the facades quite simple. But also, so this is basically the circulation diagram is showing that we really wanted to focus on, two functions. One, if you're passing by, we wanted something to be interesting, take your eye, but also let you go on your path without being obscured by these, really obscure shapes blocking your path. And then the second of all is if you want to actually occupy this space, creating something that's exciting and inviting without being, overly dull or boring. So these geometric diagrams are just showing how the elements can be used in different forms. A lot of them formed seating, but you'll see later in the renders, we've created little like habitation spaces where with the skylights, presentation areas, and just different forms of incubator spaces. And that's all because of the freedom of these elements. Tristan, do you want to explain this one? You can see in the sectional perspective how each area is being used, and you can tell by the different levels and the different heights of each extrusion that they do create private spaces between each area, and they are all utilized differently with different seating and angles. So getting into some renders now, one of the constraints, I guess you could say, we found earlier on, which we had multiple versions of the concept, I guess you could say, was overpopulating the site. Obviously, we're using, we're using large elements. And the second thing we're using is a lot of color. Fortunately, the site allows for this because, as we discussed earlier, it's quite a bland and quite a raw site, I guess you could say. So this played to our strength, but also we had to really focus on not becoming overwhelming. We didn't want to make a jarring scene. And we believe we've harmonized that perfectly. So this is obviously looking back at the building, showing how the exterior kind of climbs briefly onto the facade, but also will continue further in. This is a close-up. As I said, we just mentioned briefly that we are not taking away any of the tree structures. Obviously, a lot of the dirt and, I guess you could call it grass, but it was quite gross. We got rid of all that kind of stuff and just left the trees, just bringing a little bit of nature into the site. So then this is coming from the station, showing how, it's already trying to lure you in. It's quite, I guess it's teasing the elements rather than throwing them right in front of you. Another thing I thought I should mention is that the materials we'll mention briefly, we'll mention more in depth later, but it was really like recycled materials was another element that we wanted to add to our site. And we believe we've done that quite well using a similar actually to our concept, a playground material that's using like a poured in place rubber, which is quite soft to walk on. And that was another element that we wanted to, touch on to make our site more inviting. So this is the main entrance you will see from the station when you're walking in. That's kind of like got this arch over the front with all the elements. This is also can be seen from the platform too. So once you get off the train, you'll see the top, obviously, of these elements, which will also catch your eye. Luca?
Yeah, so here we have the first floor interior render. As mentioned before, it's designed to be a more open incubated space, and then with segregation with the different heights and seating. As you can see in these renders, we've included the geometry doesn't just stay segregated to the certain levels. We have them protruding through to different levels and then having functional purposes as well, as you can see with the security projector screen. So we find this a really good, enjoyable space with multiple purposes as well. It's not only fun, but it serves function, which is one of the key things we wanted to focus on as well. And here we have the second floor. As you can see, the extrusions here create a little bit more of segregated spaces that hold different purposes as well. And this is just a really great render to show the transition from inside to out and how we're trying to blur those lines of the building.
So with our prototypes and our construction process, we looked at using a domino join for the furniture on the inside. So this is just some images of us playing around with the domino join and seeing how they would connect to each other. Because we got so many different angles and joins, we had to play with a different degree on how they would sit. With our second prototype, this would be used for the outside. So it's a recycled plastic, just using old LDPE plastic, which is used on milk bottles. So just melting it down and just repurposing it for the outside of the security building. So it's more durable and can sustain different elements that happen outside, like the sun, the rain, etc. So for our final prototype, this was the killer, I guess you could say. We've decided that all our elements basically share an unlimited amount of angles. So when manufacturing these, they all had like unique combinations of the miter join, also with the actual shape. So none of them are actual squares. There are some form of geometry, I guess you'd say. And then also the angle at which they all join together. So with our first two prototypes, it was kind of, I guess you could say, like a linear shape. The bends were only on one axis. So when we made this three-face kind of, I guess you could say, cube without the remaining faces, we were faced with the challenge of how do we actually join all these faces flushly to then allow for the domino joint and then a perfect miter. So what we did, I won't touch too much briefly on it, but we scaled it in Rhino and used a Grasshopper script to extract that information. The next problem we faced was how to actually cut these angles because they were on, as I said, they were basically unlimited. We had so many different variations. It was pretty silly to think we could just cut them on the drop saw like we did with our first prototypes. So next we had to basically rig it to the table saw so then we could actually sit the face vertically, which then obviously gave us a much larger arsenal of angles we could cut. So therefore, we've been doing this for the past couple of 2 weeks, I believe it was, basically cutting these faces and experimenting with them. And as you can see, with the amount of markups we have on the timber, there was a lot of trial and error and seeing where we went wrong. But in the end, we actually were quite successful with it, and we ended up with quite a flush prototype, which was great. Due to COVID, obviously, we were locked out of the workshop. But this would, and in practical sense, this would be cladded with either the eco paneling if it was interior, or we could clad it with the plastic, I guess you could say plastic tiles that we'd use out of recycled plastic. So this is the box here. As I said, this is a diagram also showing how it would join internally with the domino joint. So it's a shame because we're going to be hiding a lot of the domino joint, which is quite a, I guess you could say, a beautiful bit of joinery, timber joinery. But at the same time, it creates such a flush point, an edge on each bit of furniture. So it definitely fits the function, but it's just a shame we can't show it off more. And then, yeah, the materials.
Yeah, so one of the great aspects about our construction method is that it provides evidence that regardless of angle, shape, direction, we can actually create this. And so now that we have like the means, one of the things that we really want to focus on as well is like, now that we're reassessing the workplace, is there other elements that we can reassess? And one of the things we did want to reassess was sustainable materials. So the use of eco paneling is recycled material that can allow for the cladding of our construction method in a more eco-friendly way. Next slide, please. And as mentioned before, like the poured in place rubber, again, is another recycled material that allows that allows for cladding our exterior, and it allows for us to place the detailings and constructions of Yvonne's artwork into the floor.
So due to COVID, obviously, as I said, we don't have, we were a bit weird with our models because we had so many of them. Tristan, do you have you should have the plastic model? But this is a scanned up version of the model that we made. We ended up making a huge tile that could be cladded onto something. Tristan, if you've got it there. Just, yeah. Yeah, but obviously we couldn't finish it due to COVID and being locked out of the workshop, but yeah. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Tristan, do you mind showing your screen again or spotlight it?
Do you want me to stop sharing so you can see it easier? Does that help?
I haven't.
I'll stop doing that so then you can see if that helps. Can you see it?
Let me okay. Okay. Looks pretty cool. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, please bring back the presentation so the guests can make comment.
Yep.
Who would like to go first?
I'm happy to start. So, again, welcome on your presentation. I have to say this type of architecture is quite adventurous and it's quite playful. It is not everybody's cup of tea. And when I first thought, you started presenting it, and I thought, oh, okay, it's going to be quite a kiddie approach, maybe. But actually, I was surprised in how mature your response was to the project as a whole. You thought about issues that's at the forefront of what we talk about in industry at the moment, and it's things like future workplace. What is it going to be? You referred to things like Google, even other companies like NASA, Uber, Atlassian, even developers like Mirvac are all considering what the future of workplace is at the moment. And it's all things that us as architects are really starting to grapple with and think about what's next. So I think the fact that you even started considering these things is very mature. You also brought in elements of sustainability, so using recycled materials, and how that could be developed and how that could be implemented into your design. I think it was a very mature response to a project while still being fun and playful. I think the entrance is crazy and I like it. It's very like kids entrance. And I like how you carry the theme throughout the project as well. It's quite interesting. I do have a couple of questions. I'm wondering why you chose Yvonne or Odette as your local artist. Is it just because you liked her paintings, or does she have some significant?
Yeah, of course. So my mic's not muted. No, it's not. So basically when we started this playful idea, I guess you could say, it started with those blocks. And then it was going to be the question, obviously, why the blocks? Why is that your concept? And I stumbled across Odette's artwork because she was recently, as I mentioned, she was in that Queen's list. So it was an award that she recently received. And I didn't actually mention, which I should have, is that she's been doing a masterclass since she's been back in Australia for the past 20 years or so, I believe. So basically she'd given so much to the Glenferrie region. This was kind of like a homage paying back to her. And then that's where it basically took off from.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I think, I mean, her stuff is cool, and I think it fits quite well with your concept as well. I think one of the things that could be perhaps further developed is your prototypes. As you could see with your prototypes, it's quite difficult to make such a large amount of different pieces for the project. So one thing that, you know, potentially might happen and might help with your sustainability kind of theme is creating, you know, set pieces or set modules that you could maybe flexibly use to create the different surfaces and structures. But apart from that, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Cool. I do. Good choice of artist. I've always liked Yvonne on that stuff. So cool. But I think similar to the previous one, I would say I can't really. When I look at the interior spaces, especially, I can't really tell what's going on where and why. I mean, deriving any kind of floor plan based on an abstract artwork is going to be pretty hard work, but I mean, you kind of need to do that. But look, that's, I don't need to repeat myself there, but it's cool. It looked at great designs, cool direction to come at it from. And it does make sense for a university with the sort of reputation that Swinburne has. And transferring that to the outside space and communicating that to the broader precinct, I think is really, really good idea. So cool, that's good. I think you'd probably have sadly, you'd have a hard time really getting this actually done in the real world, especially out in the public space, because some people, as mentioned just now as well, really don't go for this type of stuff. I'm sure you'll have seen the RMIT buildings in CBD, which really do look quite naff. And I think are fairly universally disliked nowadays. So you got to be really careful with that stuff. But look, overall, yeah, I think I won't bother sort of really repeating myself too much, but I do like this in that it's my main comment, and the main reason I like this is because it's drawing on a really strong local theme, a good artist. If you were to say link that to what's actually happening in the building, like maybe focusing this building's function and role in the precinct or the university on visual art or something like that, then you'd really sold me with that concept. Yeah. But look, broadly speaking, I think it's helping to communicate the role of the university and the creative stuff and the color and the craziness pretty well. And that's kind of getting a bit closer to what I'd like to see that, you know, this building at least start to do, like really symbolize what's going on here and the contribution of uni to the precinct. So cool there. Cool prototyping. I can't really comment too much on that, but I like to see it. So cool, great work, and cool presentations and renders as with everybody else. Except that road there looks like water. I don't know. That's crazy, but that's totally not important. Cool, good work, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. All right, we're running a bit over time. Last group, please get prepared. Please share screen now. Sorry, Alex Pantia, we have to move on. Otherwise, we're going to be here late. Last group, please.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yep. Perfect.
Control L.
Here I am. Normally that works. I don't know why that's not working right now. There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay, please start.
All right. Okay, so today Brianna, Nadine and I are really excited to present to you our project that we've titled Delta. We just really quickly like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're building and gathering on. So the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, we pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So I'll begin with the site for which we've chosen to develop. We chose the second of the two options like everyone else. So the space stretches from the Don Arcade and covers parts of Alfred Street, Columbia Street, which is the one running east-west, and onto Frederick Street as well. One of the really important things about this site is the transitory nature of it. So when developing this space, for us, it was really important to consider the foot traffic that it would see. So the majority of people coming through the space are Swinburne students or anyone accessing the station from the campus or Glenferrie Road. However, it was also in the back of our minds that we wanted this space to entice people to stay and not just simply act as a gateway, but an interactive design also. So these are just some visuals that hopefully give you a bit of a feel for like the ambience of the space and the setting. So the security building itself is really quite dark and dingy, and we wanted to repurpose it as an incubator space, obviously to meet the design brief. And we really wanted to kind of encourage people to have a social setting to kind of study in and kind of communicate within the boundaries of. And the interior is also kind of quite claustrophobic. So you'll see later that we opened the space up a lot and allowed a lot of natural light to enter through windows and also through some skylights. So moving into the concept development of this project, one of the most poignant and I suppose sacred aspects of the Melbourne terrain are the rivers that we have, the Yarra being perhaps the most iconic. So stemming back to the traditional custodians of this land, the river has been a life-sustaining necessity and a place of gathering, which is something that we found really quite significantly symbolic. We also attribute a lot of our final design success to the physical topographic quality of water, as you can see translated through this diagram in the line work into a 3D form. So we are kind of paying homage to the Australian landscape.
So this is the current and proposed demolition of Swinburne Security Building, where the black depicts existing and the red depicts the proposed. In order to convert the security building into an open and bright incubator space, we decided to move all interior walls except the storage and restrooms. Here is a bubble diagram for the ground floor. By removing almost all interior walls, we hope to create open study and meeting spaces. This bubble diagram translates to this fluid line drawing. As you can clearly see, our open design concept is based on Ripple, with the idea of creating space where people like to stay where Ripple meets the site. This plan depicts the exterior landscape that links the incubator space to Columbia Street. The exterior design is heavily influenced by the reaction water has with any forms of tension, often creating a ripple effect. This is a close-up of the ground floor plan. When you enter the incubator space from Alfred Place, you're met with sunken and elevated study pods and a staircase on the right. Each study pod resembles the shape of ripple and overall creates an open and inviting space. Hidden underneath the staircase is a private and enclosed room. This space is supposed to be multifunctional and can act as study, meeting, teaching, presenting, or even relaxing space. To allow for wheelchair accessibility, we decided to add a lift in the far left corner. We're also proposing the incubator space as 3 entry points, And those places would be the existing entrance on Alfred Place, as well as a new entrance at Alfred Street and a direct access to lift through the driveway. This is the current proposed demolition of the first floor Swinburne Security Building. Once again, this bubble diagram depicting the spaces of the first floor. And this is a fluid line drawing the first floor, clearly translating the same language from the site plan and the ground floor plan. This is a close-up of the proposed first floor. The first floor has been converted into an office and meeting space. These meeting spaces are enclosed by glass panels that allow light to filter through the space and also contour barriers as well. In response to existing dull conditions of the site, we decided to add a courtyard in the middle of the space as well as skylights. Both these additions to the site add value to the experience of the space, ultimately creating an inviting place where people would like to spend their free time. In addition, the first floor can be directly accessed by the exterior stairs that protrude on Columbia Street.
So here's the north elevation of the building, and as you can see, there's we've tried to maintain as much of the existing building as possible, whilst also kind of trying to implement the topographic language into the building and make it a bit more seamless. So if we go to the next elevations. So here's the external south elevation. And again, we're trying to, again, blend the topographic language from the building into the external landscape. And so here's the first section. It depicts the main stair on the ground floor. As well as this, you can see the outline of the study pods where students and the general public can gather. On the first floor, it provides views into the courtyard and also depicts one of the skylights. This next section provides a good view of the entry room under the main stair. The first floor also shows the courtyard from another angle and how one of the upper floor's meeting rooms will function. So here's the sectional perspective, and we deliberately chose this point to cut through our model as it allows us to see the three different environments that we intend to create. The study pods on the ground floor are for more casual gatherings, and the space can be used quite dynamically for study, relaxation, or just a space for social interactions. The upstairs courtyard is a space intended for rest and reflection so that the public can go there and to feel refreshed after studying. And the meeting rooms or study rooms on the first floor are also intended for more private gatherings that benefit from the quietness of being in enclosed spaces. So here's an axonometric depicting the exterior landscape and the building. And here's an exploded axonometric where you can more clearly see how the similar topographic language has been used both externally and internally. And so here is a diagram which depicts the many ways in which the study pods can be utilized. This includes areas for private study or social meeting places, as well as a stairway. And here's a diagram of the main staircase. The diagram on the left depicts how people will move around and interact with the staircase, as well as pinpointing the two entrance points. The right diagram depicts the entry room below the main stair with its sunken seating pods. And this diagram displays the privacy pods, which are essentially dividers to break up the space underneath the train station. This in turn creates individual areas for more private studying, gathering, and relaxing. And now onto the materials.
Awesome. So we chose our final selection of materials based on a range of reasons. Environmentally, stone and OSB boards kind of made sense as quite an ethical option. So stone's very durable and it has a very individual kind of aesthetic based on its sedimentary nature, and so it kind of perpetuates this very natural landscape that we are trying to attain. Otherwise, we kept our palette quite simple with just glass for the sake of light, the inclusion of the existing concrete and bricks for minimal impact, and also some native grasses to kind of tie the landscape together and really emulate that river scenery. So we've proposed two main construction methods for this site. So standard pieces of sandstone that you buy come in 1900 by 1950 diameters and are usually 50 mil thick. So we propose that each of these paver tiles we cut using water jets that kind of fit within those dimensional boundaries. Underneath, we have a soil infill and box steel frames that support the pavers and save using an excessive amount of stone that would otherwise not be seen. Each step is also 100 mil high, so we have a recessed concrete paver inset as well. Yep. And this one just kind of explains how the garden beds will kind of be incorporated using that same design strategy and construction methods. Yeah. Yeah, so this is one of our construction models, which we laser cut the frame out of 3 mil ply and then cut the pavers out of acrylic so that you can see through. Our second option kind of simplifies the construction method a little bit, and it was a response to our interim presentation. So we've kind of proposed pouring concrete slabs as the infill or just solid soil, and then tiling that structure with the stone pavers. We haven't entirely explored this option yet, but we thought that it might be a more convenient way of going around this construction model. Cool, so these are our renders. Yeah. So you kind of have a bit of a perspective now of how the space actually feels and how the platforms and ripples interact with the existing site. We wanted the space to be really inviting and have a really logical flow. So we've also allowed for vehicular traffic. So there's that one-way straight across from the path. And you can see that we've really accentuated the topographic qualities and contours of the ever-changing terrain that you find near rivers. Yeah. So we've also maintained really easy access and movement throughout the site, which was a consideration that we intently made for the sake of wheelchair access and disability access. We wanted this site to be inclusive of all people.
So this render highlights the strong relationship between the site and our proposal. So as you can see, we have our exterior landscape on the left and the road. Here's a render depicting how the exterior landscape can be utilized as a place of seating. This is an image where our proposal of landscape interacts with the existing site. So the staircase acts as a central part of our design. So this is a render depicting how it can be used as access to the first floor as well as place of seating. So this image depicts study pods on the ground floor. They can be used as relaxing pods where you relax or sit or study. So this is a render of the interior room created through the staircase. So as you can see, we have not wasted any materials. We've decided to utilize this space and it's really functional. And this is it being used as a lecture room. So this depicts the entryway to the first floor through the staircase. And this is the meeting rooms created on the first floor. So as you can see, glass has been used to separate each room with contour barriers as well. And this is another render of the same space.
And so here's the final internal render, which depicts the courtyard. And so we chose to use sandstone again to kind of keep consistent with the rest of the urban landscape. And so now onto the models. So here is a model that we created depicting the urban landscape under the railway line. So here you can get a better glimpse of the individual contours that build up the landscape. And Here is the top, sorry, wrong one. Here you can get see the contours in more detail. So those little etch lines indicate more contour layers, as there would be more steps, just not seen in the scale that we constructed this model. And so here's a top view, which highlights the very fluid water-like motion of the contours. And so here's a close-up of one of the garden beds. And once again, another one of the garden beds, just of a different perspective. And so here's our construction model. And we chose, once like Ruby said, to construct it out of acrylic so that we could see the supporting frame and alignment pins. And so here's a better view of the supporting structure with the top slab removed. And so here's a top view where you can see all the etch lines, which indicate all the individual sandstone tiles. And lastly, here we have some photos of the 3D printed model of part of the exterior landscape with the area which could be a space for a garden bed. And once again, thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lucky last. Yes, who would like to comment first?
I can start this time, I suppose.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Look, it's a pretty cool project. It looks really cool. It's got a great like kind of core theme running through it. At least, sorry, probably it's got a really strong core visual language to it, which is a nice coherent factor there. If I kind of refocus my comments this time a bit, because you guys have done a lot more work in the public space out there along the side there, which is cool. I always love to see that. It's got a kind of a pretty good natural theme to it. But I don't know. I think it's like if I come at it with a bit more of a landscape architect hat on, I don't know. It's just one huge study space, I guess, or hanging out space or whatever. Which cool. But then I think you could probably work up some concepts like that in terms of probably a bit more advanced program. So like what's happening at nighttime, during the daytime, can you make it a bit more flexible? Like you could put in, I don't know, down one end, you could maybe, for example, say the form changes or flattens out a bit. So you can bring in a food truck or something. So it becomes an event space at some time, which can tie into whatever the core program of the incubator space is, exactly like that. And you can sort of drive people from one end of the design to the other by changing how it is configured. So it's a bit more of a journey through the form or something like that. So it's not just one, it's just not a big blob of the same thing. And that can weave into the fact that the person might be moving through the laneway. And so one end is connected more to the functionality or the form of the laneway. And the other end is connected more to the functionality in the form of whatever's at the other end there. Swinburne generally, I don't know, you can figure out a way to sort of tweak the design language so it kind of blends the two contexts and has some other stuff layered into it. Things like that. In terms of it being accessible, I don't know about that. I think the DDA access compliance people might have some questions about how someone in a wheelchair goes up and down these stairs and across the road and things like that. But don't worry about that too much. But in terms of the sort of general access around there, I don't know. I think like overall pretty cool. I won't go into too much, real detail critique, but I don't know if you'd want people riding a bike through the same narrow passage as pedestrians. And I don't know if you'd necessarily, for example, need to keep the road. You can probably open it up for a bit more east-west communication, as opposed to just like blocking it off. But again, those are details. Overall, I really like I like the formal language you guys have used here. It's really cool. I like this, the kind of levels and stairs. It really translates into a pretty interesting and compelling visual or aesthetic, which is cool. So yeah, I think that's probably it from me. Good work, guys.
Thank you.
That's very interesting because for Malik's group, another studio, they elected to get rid of the road. Could you remind me? Is that a possibility? Like without spilling any of the confidential information. What?
You probably can't get rid of the road because there is access requirements for the buildings around it, but you can figure out how to reconfigure how that road works. So things like that are definitely important to consider. And then, yeah, look, I really always, for everybody, you might as well just do my closing sort of chat now for everyone. Is basically really focusing in on what the core program of the area is, can really help focus up everything about the design and direct some key gestures in it. Like for the previous guys, if you're doing an art thing, then that will really influence how you configure the internal and external spaces, things like that. I think can really push a design and make it really compelling, and that will interact with the exterior public space as well. That'd be my main thing for everyone. But anyway, that's definitely not directed specifically at this group. So yeah, but yeah, that road, oof, you can definitely do better than we have right now for sure.
And I think when we analyzed it, we noticed that the only or the entity that was benefiting the most from it was that supermarket. And when you look at who actually needs the road, all of those other buildings, none of them have entrances. But it kind of looked like you could just close it off on, I think it's Columbia Street, is it? So you could just leave, for example, Columbia, so that supermarket gets access, and you turn that into a way rather than a one-way. But then all the other, it's just campus, like just like all the other internal Swinburne campus roads.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's almost as if like Wooly or whoever is the owner of that pretty much put a lot of pressure into whoever is making that accessibility. What do you call them? Traffic engineers. I wonder how biased it is, you know?
Yeah, there are lots of levels to this stuff. I won't bore you guys with the details, but like there could be other stuff in there. I haven't looked at it. I'm no traffic engineer, but there'll be stuff like maybe emergency access and things like that that can really constrain your options as well.
Oh yeah, like hard surfaces for the fire truck.
Yeah, but
if it's a hard surface. Just to continue on this project, really cool as well. Like I quite like it. I'm also of the opinion, like I waited until the last one to say this, but in the future, always say why not. Sometimes things don't necessarily need a rationale. Like you could also say, well, why wouldn't you want to do this? It's a much difficult way to respond. I think saying why you need something is really hard, but saying why you don't need it, I think it's a bit easier to justify. Because I mean, most art, you don't need it. And a lot of buildings and also great spaces, like if you look at the High Line in New York, if somebody said, why do you need that? It would be quite hard to justify. But now that they have it, it's now a new typology that worldwide everybody wants to copy. And they're saying like, oh, why don't we do that? But when they were actually explaining it to the city to reuse an abandoned train line and turn it into a public sky walkway, it just revolutionized. So I think, for example, in your case, this Dawn Parade is really a disused walkway. It's an abandoned area of the site plan, or how do you call it, of the town planning organization of Swinburne's campus. You can totally see, I mean, wherever you see trash cans, that somebody thinks that that's like the back of house and not really the front of house. And I mean, putting cars, it looks like there's like a little chain link that has car spaces that also look a bit ad hoc and not well planned. So you can totally tell that this was a leftover space and nobody really is facing it. The train station is giving its back. The security building is giving its back. Everybody's giving its back to this space. So and also it's conducive to crime at night because there's not enough illumination. It's just an abandoned space. So by actually creating spaces like the ones that you've done, it would actually attract people. And then now people would just want to go and hang out in there. And then that would actually make the space safer. It will create, I feel like this is one of the few projects that actually did kind of emphasize the placemaking. Like I really would like to go there. The only thing is, how do you avoid, for example, loitering, let's say, which is a big concern in campuses. And I guess you could do that by, as Elliot said, creating a night activity. So maybe those arches, as other team members have done, could turn into shops. And then definitely consider introducing ramps, because it's not that hard to actually put diagonal ramps across steps. But well done, team.
Thank you.
Any other closing comments? No? Okay. Very well done, guys. Thank you for presenting, and thank you for adjusting to this sudden lockdown. It's a pity that we didn't get to present in person and see all the cool models, and that really showcased the hard work that you guys put in. But anyway, very well done. I hope you enjoy the semester, and I hope you really get used to this habit of presenting your work, and not just presenting to your peers, but also to others. That's a very key skill for architect. But you guys are very young. For second year students, you're certainly doing very well. I wasn't this good when I was in my second year, so well done. And thank you everyone for the guests for making taking time to attend our presentation and give the student feedbacks. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks, Pantia and Manush. Right. That's it.
Well done, everyone. It was fantastic.
Yeah, really good work, guys. Did some really good work for second year, as mentioned. So good stuff. Keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the profession. It will be pretty stressful for the rest of your life. Learn to deal with it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. Are we having Panteas after this?
Yeah. It starts at 1 o'clock, and please, I will close off the Zoom link so that I can export the recording. But please come back, look at what other groups are presenting, and get in this video habit of attending others' presentation. That's how you learn as well. You look at different approaches, very different approaches, and you hear very different feedback. So, all right. See ya. See you soon. I'll close it, and please join back at 1.